public welfare.
It's been a year since the first budget. It feels like it's a fair time to give an assessment on the Chancellor. How do you think she's done?
Listen, it's been a bad hand played, in truth, pretty poorly. So mistakes have been made, and repeated mistakes. And the worst of that, I would say, is it's repeated mistakes. The black hole narrative that you and I discussed a year ago, sucking all life, all energy and light from the economy, has been a mistake repeated this time as well. So not enough has been done to give growth a chance to create that stability. It's only 16 months since Keir Starmer said we want to tread more lightly on our lives. That has singly not happened. That speculation has proved positive of that.
Former Bank of England chief economist absolutely destroys Rachel Reeves live on Sky News. Right, so picture this. You're the Chancellor of the Exchequer. You've had 16 months to prove yourself. You promised to tread lightly on people's lives, and then the former chief economist of the Bank of England goes on national television and essentially says you've taken a bad hand and played it worse than a drunk tourist at a Vegas blackjack table. That's exactly what happened to Rachel Reeves this morning, and honestly, it was absolutely brutal to watch. Before we dive into this political car crash, quick favor. If you're loving this, hit that subscribe button. Over 92% of you watching haven't subscribed yet. It's free, takes literally 2 seconds, and it genuinely helps us keep delivering this content. Smash that notification bell whilst you're at it. Cheers if you did. Right, back to the absolute roasting.
So we've got the budget next week. It feels like we've been kind of bracing for it for months. How bad do you think it's going to be?
It has been a long time, hasn't it? I mean, a real circus that's been in town for months and months now, a circus of speculation. And that's by itself been very bad, I think. It's caused businesses and consumers to hunker down. One of the reasons we had a very weak growth number last week is because that budget speculation has damped people's willingness to spend, and first and foremost, we need to stop that speculation.
So you think there's a direct link then between all of the circus, as you put it, the kind of speculation and the weak growth that we saw?
Without any shadow of a doubt. I mean, if you speak to businesses, speak to consumers, their fearfulness about where the axe will fall is causing them, not unreasonably, to save rather than spend, to not put their balance sheet to work. And that has taken the legs from underneath.
Now, let me just pause here, because that is such a devastating line when you actually unpack it. He's not even giving her the courtesy of saying she inherited an impossible situation. No, he's saying, yes, the hand was bad, but mate, you somehow made it worse. That's like being given a slightly burnt piece of toast and deciding to set the entire kitchen on fire. It's impressive, in the worst possible way. But Haldane wasn't finished. Oh no, he was just warming up. He went on to say that mistakes have been made, and here's the kicker, repeated mistakes. And this is where it gets really interesting, because repetition in politics is absolutely deadly. Making one mistake, that's human. Making the same mistake twice, that's either incompetence or stubbornness, and neither is a particularly good look when you're managing the 6th largest economy in the world.
Become far too elongated and far too leaky, to be honest. You know, we have this pretty much daily speculation about the next tax rise, and we need to re-engineer that process to either make it watertight, like the Bank of England's monetary policy decisions, or a genuinely open consultation. Right now, we have this halfway house of leaks and speculation which serves absolutely no one, least of all the economy.
I mean, we saw that particularly on income tax, right, where we were, led to believe that the government was going to raise income tax.
Yeah.
And then suddenly that's not the case anymore. I mean, that, I guess, is exactly what you're talking about, right?
Haldane specifically called out what he termed the black hole narrative. Remember that, the government's insistence that there was this massive financial black hole left by the previous administration, sucking all the energy and light from the economy. Now, whether you believe that black hole existed or not is almost beside the point. Haldane's argument is that constantly banging on about it, constantly reminding everyone how dire things are, has created a self-fulfilling prophecy of doom and gloom. It's like telling everyone at a party that the party is rubbish. Eventually, people start believing you, and the party actually becomes rubbish. Here's what Haldane said, and this is absolutely crucial. The black hole narrative that you and I discussed a year ago, sucking all energy and light from the economy, has been a mistake repeated this time as well. So not enough has been done to give growth a chance to create that stability. Translation? Stop telling everyone the sky is falling, and maybe, just maybe, people might actually feel confident enough to spend and invest. Revolutionary concept, I know. And then came what might be the most politically charged part of the entire interview. Haldane brought up something that Keir Starmer said just 16 months ago. Starmer promised he wanted to tread more lightly on people's lives. You know, less government interference, more personal freedom, that whole jazz. Haldane's response? That has singularly not happened, which is political speak for that was complete nonsense, wasn't it? Now, this is where it gets really interesting from an economic psychology perspective. Haldane pointed out something that anyone who runs a business or manages household finances will immediately understand. He said that if you speak to businesses or consumers right now, there's this pervasive fearfulness about where the axe will fall next. What taxes are coming, what regulations, what new costs. And when people are afraid, they don't spend money. They save it, they hunker down, they basically go into economic hibernation mode. Businesses aren't putting their balance sheets to work. They're sitting on cash instead of investing in expansion, hiring, or innovation. And this, according to Haldane, has taken the legs from beneath growth in the economy. It's a vicious cycle. The government talks about how bad things are, proposes various tax increases and policy changes. People get scared, they stop spending, the economy slows down, which then justifies the government's initial doom and gloom narrative. It's like economic inception, but instead of dreams within dreams, it's pessimism within pessimism.
The reaction on social media was predictably explosive. One viewer on X wrote, "Correct. They say one thing and do something entirely different," which, let's be honest, could be the unofficial motto for basically every government in modern history. Another added, "The changes made by Reeves in the last budget have been a disaster. She needs to go," which is quite the statement considering she's only had one budget so far. That's like sacking a football manager after one match. Although, to be fair, we are British, so sacking people after minimal time is kind of our thing. Interestingly, one person blamed Brexit, simply writing, "Brexit, the end," because of course they did. Brexit has become the economic boogeyman that gets blamed for everything from slow growth to your morning coffee being cold. Some of it's justified, much of it isn't. But it's always there, lurking in the background of every economic discussion, like that one uncle who brings up politics at Christmas dinner. There was one slightly more optimistic take, with someone writing, "Let's see how she builds on this experience moving forward," which is the political equivalent of "bless your heart" in the American South. It sounds supportive, but is actually quite damning when you think about it.
Now, here's what makes this whole situation particularly precarious for Rachel Reeves. The Autumn Budget 2025 is set to be delivered on November 26th. That's right around the corner. So she's got a few weeks to somehow turn this narrative around, restore confidence, and deliver a budget that doesn't send businesses and consumers running for the hills. No pressure, obviously. The fundamental problem that Haldane has identified, and this is something that goes beyond just partisan politics, is that confidence is absolutely crucial in economics. You can have the technically perfect fiscal policy on paper, but if nobody believes in it, if businesses are too scared to invest and consumers are too worried to spend, then it simply won't work. Economics isn't just maths and spreadsheets. It's psychology, emotion, and confidence all rolled into one massive, complicated mess. Reeves is in a genuinely difficult position. She inherited an economy that was hardly firing on all cylinders. The pandemic's effects are still lingering, global economic headwinds are very real, and yes, Brexit has created some structural challenges, regardless of where you stand on that particular debate. But Haldane's point is that the way she's handled this situation has made things worse rather than better. She's amplified the negativity rather than countering it with optimism and a clear growth strategy.
The unemployment rate hitting 5% is particularly concerning because employment is often seen as a lagging indicator. It gets worse after the economy has already been struggling for a while. So if we're seeing unemployment tick up now, it suggests the underlying economic problems have been brewing for some time. And with growth figures disappointing in the third quarter, the trend is decidedly not our friend right now. What Reeves needs to do, and what Haldane is essentially calling for, without explicitly saying it, is to change the entire tone of the conversation. Stop focusing on the problems and start articulating solutions. Stop telling businesses and consumers to brace for impact and start giving them reasons to be optimistic. Stop playing defense and start playing offense. Because right now, the government's economic messaging feels like they're constantly apologizing for existing rather than confidently steering the ship. The challenge, of course, is that changing tone whilst also making tough fiscal decisions is incredibly difficult. If you need to raise certain taxes or cut certain spending to balance the books, you can't exactly skip into the room whistling a happy tune. But there's a difference between being realistic about challenges and being relentlessly pessimistic about everything. One inspires people to roll up their sleeves and get to work. The other makes them want to hide under the duvet with a box of biscuits.
That pernicious speculation that is dampening growth, that calls for much higher headroom than we have had, and probably higher headroom than has been speculated about. Our fiscal framework.
That's basically more money in the bank, basically.
More in the tank.
More in the tank to, yeah.
So that when we do get, exactly, inevitable changes in the economy's fortunes, we don't inevitably say, what does that mean for tax rises? That, first and foremost, I hope that can be done. I fear it might not enough be done to put that speculation to bed. Secondly, this package has to involve some spending cuts as well as tax rises to fill that hole. The markets will require that. You're doing immigration today. I would have one in, one out. So if you are to raise taxes by £1, you should be required to cut spending, public spending, by £1 as part of reform.
The fact that this criticism is coming from Andy Haldane makes it particularly stinging. This isn't some opposition politician taking cheap shots. This is a respected economist, someone who spent years at the very heart of Britain's economic policy-making machinery, saying that the current approach isn't working. That carries weight. That's the kind of criticism that cuts through because it comes from a place of genuine expertise rather than political point scoring. So what happens next? Well, all eyes will be on that November 26th budget. Reeves has a chance to prove Haldane wrong, to deliver something that genuinely inspires confidence and sets a positive trajectory for growth. Or she could double down on the current approach and hope that reality somehow bend to match her narrative. One of those options is significantly more likely to succeed than the other, and I'll let you guess which one. Thanks for watching, folks. Make sure you're subscribed for more British political coverage that's actually worth your time. See you in the next one.